I got one. Yeah. All right. There we go. All right. But it's welcome to the regular meeting of the Helotes City Council. It is August 8th, 2024. Time is 7 p.m. If you'll stand with me, we'll rise for the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's pray. Lord, grant us the serenity, patience, wisdom to ensure the best possible outcome for the citizens of Helotes. Guide us and direct us to do what we believe is just, right, and worthy of your praise. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Well, all right. There are really no words to describe what has been happening here behind closed doors for the last number of weeks to put together tonight's meeting. Suffice it to say, a huge shout of appreciation for the countless hours and efforts exerted by our senior and executive staff, all of our employees. This budget season has been a trial, a tribulation, but looking forward to getting through everything that we're going to be presenting you to tonight. At this point, we are going to have a public hearing. This will be a public hearing to give all interested persons the right to appear and be heard on request by Las Palapas Mexican Restaurant for a specific use permit to authorize a drive-through facility service located at 14924 Scenic Loop Road, Helotes, Texas 78023, near the intersection of Bandera Road on a property zoned neighborhood service district B2 and identified in Bearcat property ID number 1395816. The time is 7:02. And
Mr. Mayor, nobody signed up for the.
nobody is signed up. All right, and therefore we will close at 7:02.
I received one, but it wasn't for a public hearing.
Oh.
Okay. At this point, we'll have citizens be heard, and we have one person signed up. Again, please state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes to share your thoughts. So we'll start with Tammy Poynton.
Thank you all for everything you do. I appreciate it. Again, my name is Tammy Poynton. I'm with Helotes Country Club. It's 14687 Old Bandera Road. As usual, I'll go really fast just to cover my points. On August 2nd, I received this email stating I had a violation for charges for parking at my bar. I don't charge for parking. I charge $4 for beer. I obviously don't charge my customers for parking. So I'm supposed to go to court on August 12th stating that I charge for parking. Like the previous one, I think code compliance needs to verify before they send this. This is the only thing I received is an email. I was supposed to receive a certified letter. I haven't received it yet. And I heard that this is a new thing, need a certificate of occupancy, but there's other stores that charge for parking. If you look at Mifey Moore's across from Floors, did she get it? Did Serenity Manor get it? Did Elf Hardware? Did Floors that owns the Triangle? I know the city bought the lot behind the antique stores with a stipulation that that owner could still charge for parking. Did they get it? And I don't charge for parking, but how can I find out if these people got it? You know, whatever this is, new situation. But again, I think it's just something for money. I feel really offended that I'm getting another violation for more time for me to come here in front of the council, which is not true. Another one is, let's see, where am I at? What happened with the survey on the Helotes News about extending Marketplace, which it got a 90-something% positive rate to move it past the bridge. And then it just kind of ceased. It was a great response to that survey. And again, the road does get closed at certain times. It's going to be closed in October for a race. Another one, let's see. Oh, code compliance. I find this a big conflict of interest. The code compliance lady works at a competitor bar after hours. I find it a conflict of interest, especially that bar has numerous infractions with TABC. And I know people leave that bar extremely intoxicated, but our code enforcement employee is working there after hours. Me being a bar owner, I find that a conflict of interest. And then I just don't know, are city employees allowed to text and drive in a vehicle in a work zone? I'm just curious of that, but that was it. I'm not gonna go to court on this date. I haven't received the certified letter, but I find it bogus. I wish the city would work more with Old Town to help us grow instead of piecing us together for little bits of money here and there and here and there. So thank you for what you do, but as a concerned citizen, like I said last time, it's a bad HOA in Helotes, Old Town, and it's depressing. So that's it. Thank you.
Certainly, city council doesn't issue tickets, and that is something to take up with the court. If there's a specific issue or faulty charge, certainly I would highly recommend people go through their day of court or challenge it in appropriate manners. As always, just to know that if somebody opens up a business, if the business is for parking, they do and are required a certificate of occupancy for the specified use. And we do keep on file all certificate of occupancies, and they are required of everyone. So anything outside of that is definitely follow up with code compliance office and follow through that. We are unaware and are not made aware of individual charges, but we're happy to help facilitate answers to the questions. That is the last individual signed up. We have anybody online?
I do apologize, but I didn't know the procedure that you have to sign before you speak. So can I have?
It's up to you.
It's up to me. Certainly, just you know, and it is on our website. Certainly, citizens be heard or sign up, but certainly I'll make that allowance. Come on and join us. Sure. Again, state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes to share your thoughts.
Appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Mayor and council, board, I appreciate that. My name is Alejandro Garcia. I live at 10634 Canyon River in Helotes, Texas. I'd like to know, how many times do we cut the grass on the green belt? Does anyone know?
It's not a city issue.
It's not a city issue, Alejandro.
HOA.
It's a homeowners association.
I can't hear you, sorry.
It's a homeowners association.
Oh, sorry. No need for me to talk anymore.
Okay.
I do apologize for that.
But do you have something else you want to say?
No. Thank you.
You're right.
Quarterly.
All right. All right. With that, we will go to consent agenda items number 4 and 5. Looking for a motion to approve consent agenda items number 4 and 5 as written.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve consent agenda items 4 and 5 as written.
Motion by Sanders, second by Cato. No discussion needed. All in favor of approving items number 4 and 5 on the consent agenda as written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right. At this point, we'll do the mayor's report, have a couple of updates. Text dot improvements, closely watched, closely monitored, and ever questioning when we're going to be done. I want to give a shout of appreciation to our fire chief who consistently sits on these calls and updates us. We are looking to have pavement going down, and it's kind of tough to determine if they meant one complete side on both lanes or one lane on both directions, but sounds like 2 of our 6 lanes will be done by the 19th. Chief, you want to give a?
The goal is to have it all done by
The goal is the 19th, but we have a commitment for at least 2 lanes, but the goal is to have all of them, and that day is quickly approaching, but that's where we stand on that, again, with punch items, and of course, some light timing adjustments will be going on through there. But looks like the punch list items will carry on through into September, hopefully of this year. Household hazardous waste collection will be on Saturday, September 7th, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. or until our capacity is met. This will be for Helotes residents. You will need, it will be here right in front of the fire station in the driveway area. You will need your waste bill to bring to show and prove citizenship. And additionally, we have a Helotes music night on Friday, September 20th from 7 to 9 p.m. Of course, featuring our Helotes area community band. So invite everybody out to that. We'll move on to the individual items. At this time, we're looking for a motion and a second to discuss and take action on a request by Las Palapas Mexican Restaurant for a specific use permit for the drive-through facility.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to table this item until the next city council meeting.
Well, okay. Well, that is one option, but that would require a second, correct, and a
And a
vote on
vote,
that.
that's
motion.
correct.
Is there anybody that is interested in seconding that motion to table? Sure. Is there a particular reason?
Yeah, two reasons. I did attend the P and Z meeting. There were citizens who spoke with and about this agenda item, and I have not been able to get in touch with them and speak with them about this. I'd like to have a deeper conversation with them as to why they said the things and the reasons that they said. Also, I think it's really unfair to the citizens to have two public hearings in the same week. We had two public hearings today and then one Tuesday. And the only people that showed up to speak on these public hearings were people who actually received letters about them. So I know it's been published on our website. I couldn't tell you how many people have actually visited the website to know and be actually a little more informed about this particular item. So those are the two reasons why I'd like to table this. I'd like to have a discussion with the citizens who are a little deeper, and I haven't been able to get in touch with them.
So we have normal procedures to post, and we reach out by letter to everybody that's affected area. The fact that the city has multiple public hearings is not an issue. Actually, to delay them would be onerous to the people that are putting in the request. The issues that were brought up by the three people are, as I reviewed and what we will discover in our item as we open up for discussion, the fact that people have concerns, the nature of the concerns appear to, those questions seem to be self-answered, which we can cover, but it'd be my recommendation that we don't, but we would need a second to even take a vote on this. Second for the motion to table.
Mr. Mayor, before you take a vote, can I
No,
add to?
we need to see if there's a second first.
Oh, there we go.
Is there a second? There is no second. Seems there's no second, the,
I do want to answer council member Merchant's remarks. I don't want there to be a misconception about posting deadlines or timelines. So there's two things that are involved with the public hearing. It's the newspaper notice and then the mail out. Newspaper notice has to be published at least 16 days before the hearing date. Mail out has to be done at least 10 days before the hearing date. The notice and the mail out were done almost 30 days before. It was posted on the newspaper. It was posted on our bulletin board. It's posted on the website. And yes, you are correct. The people that came to P&Z on Tuesday, it probably was only the ones that received the notice, but I can assure you when they receive a notice, they tell all their neighbors.
all right. So.
That was, I just
Sure.
don't want there to be a
I-
misconception of, and there's no issue with having a public hearing in the same week.
Other than it's inconvenient.
It's actually more convenient actually because it has them all at the same.
Yes.
all phones on
I
there.
also
For
want
you.
to, I also want to say, to date, not received any phone calls, not received any emails.
I don't disagree with any of that.
Okay.
All right. Is there anybody that wants to second that motion? No? Okay, and that motion is
That's-
dies.
Thanks.
So we're looking for a motion, a second to take action on item number 7 is written.
Mr. Mayor, I move we discuss, take action on agenda item number 7. That's right.
Okay, motion by Sanders, second by Cato. I'll have you open up the discussion, sir.
I'd actually like the two gentlemen representing the development, if you could come up and
however you guys want to do it.
Okay. I'll jump in and send you.
Okay.
Absolutely fine.
I've been waiting for this microphone all evening. I'm Bootsfield. I'm the contractor that builds the Las Palapas. I think y'all kind of all remember me. I hope you do. I remember all y'all. All right, what can I do for you, sir?
So I don't want to repeat the stuff that came up in planning and zoning earlier this week. What I'd like to do is pull the thread a little bit more on, because there was a lot of discussion. I know P and Z unanimously voted no for the drive-through for various reasons. During the discussion, you referred to a new plan. So this is the second new plan that I've heard about, but I've never seen it. And so when I said second new plan, it was shrinking the parking spaces in the back.
Yes, sir. And I have a copy of it with me if you'd like to look at it.
I just want to know if you could tell me approximately how many of the parking spaces are you gonna?
There's about 86 parking spaces, and we've, I could be happy to show this.
It's on the.
Yeah, it's on this.
Oh, okay.
There it is.
It's just.
Well, that's a drive-through exhibit. We just sent this to Michael this morning.
This is the, I'll be happy to show it to you. So before they had the entire park lot, and this is construct down. I'm sorry. Oh, there you go. Hello. That thing works good. So we've just shrunk it down completely to just accommodate the number of spaces that is required for the build itself
Mr.
and
Mayor.
saved.
Mr. Mayor, if we can stick to the drive-through use itself.
Well, there's a reason why I'm asking this, because previous discussions were about the safety of having the drive-through there, and having less parking in the back, for me, makes me feel comfortable it's not a safety issue anymore.
They are working with staff on the parking space, the number of parking spaces. If it is a significant change, staff has already communicated to the mayor that we will bring that as back as a conceptual design plan, just on the site plan. But Frank, correct me if
That's
I'm
what-
wrong, parking spaces has nothing to do with the drive-through use.
Well, no, they're pretty close related.
Okay.
It's staff's safety.
Yeah.
There was a concern from P and Z about safety, and I brought up safety.
Okay.
And then I was told not to talk about safety at the last meeting because we were focused on the site plan, which I get it.
Yeah,
But for right now, reducing the number of parking spots back there means I am not as concerned, now that I see this, that there's gonna be a drove of people having to step through the actual drive-through.
okay,
So for me, this is a positive for me
okay.
on how I want to vote on this.
This is primarily for employee parking and stuff in the back, so that your customers will be to the front side now. So
Okay.
that's what's pared down. Anybody else want to see this one up here?
No, I've seen that.
Okay, sorry about that. All right.
So I appreciate that, and I'm sorry if, I'm trying to stay on topic.
I understand.
I have a
I
habit
understand.
of going off topic, so you do have to reel me in.
Yeah.
The other thing that came up, and I don't know if I got a definitive final thing, and that was the noise level. And that, again, has something that impacts the drive-through. And one of the people that spoke at the public hearing at P and Z, the next door neighbor who lives in a house relatively close to where this is gonna be, there was nothing on the site plan that talked about fencing. So we never brought it up. But now with this, I think it's appropriate for us to talk about the fencing and what are you planning to specifically do about mitigating the noise?
And I'll answer that. I'm Alvin Peters, 1016 State Highway 46 East, Bernie, Texas. And I talked to the two couples that were there. Two nice couples. After the meeting, they followed me out and go, "Oh my gosh, Alvin, we didn't mean for it to be, I guess, denied." And I go, I don't think their concerns were, and both couples lived to the north of the site, was the noise level. And we didn't have a note on any previous drawings we submitted before that showed that there would be an 8-foot fence. So that's what's going to stop a lot of the noise, because the fence is below the car, but below most humans. It'll be an opaque barrier, not an open fence. The other thing the young couple were concerned about was the hours. Was it open 24 hours? This particular franchise is owned by Brett Bradford. I guess this would be his 6th if we're allowed to move forward. 7th?
7.
They all stop at 11 o'clock.
All of
They
them.
shut down. That's just, he's a family man. He likes to get home at a decent hour. the other concern, but yeah, the trees, the flooding, and we talked about that. We
The
got rid of all that.
The flooding has nothing to do.
Right,
with
right.
it. I wasn't
And,
aware of that.
yeah, I think that was it, the noise level. And there is a way to modulate, temper the noise on the intercoms, you know. And I think when I talked to the couples afterwards, I said that they can dial down the volume. And people aren't going to be taking orders at 2 a.m. at midnight. And they were happy with that.
Right.
Okay, because I was looking at other examples in Helotes where we've approved the drive-throughs. But in those cases, they're not applicable because the homes were built after the drive-throughs were already in place. So this was just a little bit, just the opposite scenario. My last thing, and I know people talked about the traffic impact. I firmly, me personally, I mean, I really wish we had a comprehensive of all the development that's going there, not just bits and pieces. But I'm just, in my mind, I think with the 2 egress and ingresses coming through the QT, we all drive, right? And so we know when you hit traffic, you tend to find the least path of resistance, and people will find out, I'm guessing, that it's going to be way more convenient to come in and out off of Bandera Road through QT and probably avoid coming into Scenic Loop. You guys threw the numbers out. Are those numbers still accurate? About 50 to 60
Yes, sir.
drive-through cars an hour during peak periods between 6 and 8?
I would say there's 3 periods of time where there's peak activity, and we found that out. Las Palapas, I asked the question. I did the traffic impact analysis. I think it's 63 cars per hour at peak times, and I went back to Las Palapas, pull your drive-through. I think they pulled the numbers from 5 different restaurants in the San Antonio area, and it jived exactly with what we said it was going to happen. And peak hours are AM. Let's say 6:30, 7:30, PM, 6:30, 7:30, and then they do a little bit of load at lunchtime, but it's nowhere what morning and evening peak hours are.
Okay.
So no, what we've submitted has not changed. Helotes doesn't have an Excel sheet that does this. So we use City of San Antonio. We were told we could use City of San Antonio's TIA software to come up with those numbers.
Thank you. I don't have any more questions. Thanks.
No, they've addressed my 2 concerns.
Okay. Councilman?
The P and Z, the rep at the P and Z meeting said approximately 30% of your business comes from the drive-through.
33%, yes, ma'am.
33%. So I just want my colleagues to know that if we deny the drive-through, the feasibility for them going ahead with this project is at least if
0.
I was a business person.
It's
numbers.
a deal killer for Las Palapas Group. It's a big revenue driver. They have a business model that they stick to adamantly. They want to be a part of Helotes. They want to be part of your team and your family here. And they're good neighbors. They're good folks to have. But if the drive-through doesn't happen, this project does not move forward.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Just one question. At the P and Z meeting, there was a little bit of a discussion about, you know, today, what the intentions are versus what they could be in the future. And I kind of empathize with some of the residents as far as the noise that the drive-through would create. And you do have a Callahan location that is open 24 hours. I know the intent wouldn't be for this one, but
That's owned by a completely different franchisee. That's actually owned by Ron Acosta and his group.
Okay.
So, and that Callahan location is fixing to change because that's inside stuff, but it's fixing to be absorbed into the company brand, and it will be closing.
Okay.
They don't run their stores 24 hours. The juice isn't worth the squeeze, if you understand that. And those waking hours there, that can't sell enough 59-cent tacos to cover the overhead.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. Thank you.
Anybody? Mr. Mayor?
I have a couple of thoughts and statements. Number one, when this conceptual was brought, there was no doubt that there was a drive-through associated with this. There was a question of what else would go on the property, and there was some design and talk about potential coffee, various other things, but that's the rest and later on. And so I appreciate the fact that while it wasn't in its final form, it was a suggestive of, taking a look at what there's overall development. And without a doubt, when we take a look at the development of the PUD across the street, this is a commercial area. This is designated commercial area. It shouldn't be a surprise that commercial developments happen. And with that, there will be some traffic, there will be some noise because it's a commercial area and designation. While the coffee shop or other development isn't in its final phase now, and so it is not appropriate to view that, the allowance for the realization that there is going to need to be parking for everything that's in that area leads to the parking that was described. That's been pared down, but nothing can be built back in that area except for parking due to the floodplain area. And additionally, as far as well, I appreciate that there were 3 people that spoke. A lot of times people speak and they have concerns, but they're from a point of not understanding. If there's a drive-through or if there's not a drive-through, that doesn't have any impact on the flooding because it's still paved area. It's just whether or not a car is driving on it or if it is parked on it. So there is zero impact to the individual's concerns. And additionally, noise, I have a full appreciation. We do not want this to become a noisy community, but some noise is going to be associated with every single development. Either we have developments or we cancel all developments to prevent any noise, but I do appreciate the thought and the addition of information about the 8-foot opaque fence that would certainly block out noise and the utilization of, I believe it's directional speakers, right, for the drive-through. And certainly addresses a lot of the concerns on there. My concern on this item is that if there were concerns on P&Z for our drive-through, it would have should have been brought up at the conceptual point that we don't want drive-throughs at all. That was not the case. In fact, they did approve the drive-through menu signs, but not approving the menu. In the history, I'm not sure why we have a separate process for the approval of drive-throughs. It's been a relatively rubber stamp and a second process, a second hoop to jump through. I can't think of a single drive-through that was ever denied, including Bill Miller's, which has been here forever, which is an atrocious parking driving situation, and HTO, which you have an entire business walking across its main line of traffic into 2-way traffic around HTO. So that was approved as well. We've never denied a drive-through for a business, especially for nominal issues. But any additional comment at all?
Yeah, I think I will, if I may. It wasn't my intention to seem obtuse to this. I am very much like the idea of your establishment coming in. I just would have liked to have an opportunity to speak with the citizens a little further in depth about what was going on. Not trying to hold up your project.
I fully understand
that. No, I get what the mayor's saying, and I kind of wanted to have that conversation with these citizens, and I'm glad you were able to, sir, have that. It's just, we can't grow as a city if we deny a big part of business, right? We can't grow as a city if we do this. So I don't want to seem obtuse to this. Sure. Thank you.
All right, with no further discussion, all in favor of approving item number, I'm sorry, it's not appropriate for members to speak or this is a council discussion. All in favor of approving item number 7 as written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right.
Thank you, gentlemen, very, very much. Look forward to working with you guys.
Welcome.
Thank you. This time, we're going to have a presentation and discussion of the proposed fiscal year and 2025 municipal operating budget and the proposed tax year 2024 ad valorem property tax rate. I'd like to invite our Director of Finance, Daniel, to our podium for what will be the most amazing presentation you've ever seen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, give me 1 second.
I will kick off this by saying at the beginning of your binders, you'll see a 4-page letter from me. Thanks to the wonders of Microsoft inability to save when you hit save, instead of going to a blank white screen, this was done multiple times just in time for tonight's meeting. But you'll see through here in generic, and I'll just kind of reference my general letter to you all that we currently are showing, as you'll see here momentarily, a slight budget surplus. I will preempt and say that we did have an 8% increase in expenditures, but a 3% increase in revenues. And bottom line, we are really almost completely there. We do have one item that is still, we're waiting on full enrollment, open enrollment. That may have a slight impact, but that will be completed before final presentation. Open enrollment will be beginning of September. So with that, we'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Daniel.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. I appreciate y'all's time. As the mayor said, we've been working diligently on putting together our initial budget, having gone through workshop about a month ago. And since then, we've also had some meetings with pretty much every department, ran through some wish list items as well. And what you'll see up here tonight is kind of a culmination of where we've kind of landed as we continue to move through the budget process. Really, the first slide is just kind of a general mission statement. The proposed budgets developed to be consistent with the established vision and goals of the city of Helotes, allocate resources to the various city departments to provide excellent municipal services to our citizens, businesses, and visitors, and to highlight the allocation of the financial and capital resources are targeted to maintain efficiency, both in day-to-day operations, but also in providing resources to the local community. So we recently received our certified rolls from the Bexar County Appraisal District. The city of Helotes, we saw a taxable value of roughly $1.77 billion. Last year, we were roughly at around 1.697. So we saw a nice moderate increase in the tax rolls this year. About 40% of the revenues for the city comes from those property taxes. And as you'll see in the next slide, the city of Helotes has traditionally had a low property tax rate, especially when looking around surrounding areas. Right now, this is our tax rate as of this fiscal year, the 31 cents, slightly 31.1455. As we move forward, you'll kind of see that we are proposing a slight drop in the tax rate, but it still kind of holds similar to where we're at right now. So from 2013 to 2020, the assessed values and taxable property in the community have steadily increased. I think that's something we saw again as well this year. You know, we continue to see some growth. I wouldn't say it's anything extraordinary or beyond. I believe the actual percentage right now is around 5% or so. But we have maintained the lower tax rate, as you saw in the previous slide, and as we'll continue to talk about this afternoon. And the M&O operations tax rate continues to remain equal or slightly less than what was adopted by City Council in 2007. So right here is the existing tax rate, and also what the new proposed tax rate going into this next fiscal year will be. As I said earlier, the current tax rate of the 0.311455. The no new revenue tax rate came in right under 31 cents. And the voter approval tax rate came in right a little above 31.5 cents. Currently, we're proposing a straight 31 cents in regards to M&O and INS tax rates combined. We feel like this rate still allows for the city to meet all of its needs operationally, as well as continuing the trend of lowering the tax rate for the local community. This is pretty much just a graph of the similar. You can see there was a period of time over 2013 to roughly 2019 where the tax rate was held pretty constant. And since then, we've slowly been lowering the tax rate. That has allowed us to continue to provide the same amount of service but at the same time, continue to see that tax rate drop for local community. This is a similar thing right here. What you see is the M&O tax rate up against the debt service tax rate as well. Trends following what we've been saying. There was a time in which that was kind of held constant, and now we are slowly lowering that tax rate accordingly.
Just a point of clarification, the red is the
Debt service.
Debt service.
Yes.
And as you see, we continue to move forward on our plan to be debt-free as a community, which is why we see a slight decrease in tax rates each year as we pay that off and go in that direction. But yeah, M&O, still have to pay the employees.
The Bear Appraisal District, the tax rolls this year estimated that the number of property owners who qualified for the tax freeze this year was 49. Last year, that number was 56. So it kind of holds similar to what we saw last year. The second largest revenue generator for the city is sales tax. Is currently around 35% of the revenues we see. The tab right underneath, we talk about the split between the city's general funds, the investment in street maintenance, and also in regards to EDC. So for the proposed upcoming budget, we're proposing a projection of around 3.65 or around 3.6 in city sales tax. That is kind of projecting, there we go, around 1.25 for the street maintenance fund and 1.6 for EDC. And as I said previously, that revenue stream is about 35% of the revenues that the city sees. Right in front of you, you'll see a breakdown of the city's revenues going into next year. Also in front of y'all do have a binder. We have some projections based on the year to date and also where we see the year ending. I think one of the bigger things to highlight on top of in regards to not only the sales tax and the property tax, but we have seen a significant increase in what we've been bringing in on the court side in regards to tickets, fines, and forfeitures, and we've worked that into the budget this year. Other than that, everything's kind of similar in line to what we had seen last year, and I feel like the sales tax side seems to be like it is slowly kind of steadying out, I would say, after the construction in regards to Bandera and such. I feel like what we have recently been seeing in the past few months is kind of steady and getting us to a place of normalcy. The next slide up is our anticipated expenditures or proposed expenditures brought before y'all. As you can see, right now, the largest expenditure is in regards to the police, really services provided to the community, is what we as a city have continued to invest in. So you'll see a police at roughly 30%, fire and EMS come in at around 21% combined. Public Works as well has seen an increase, as well as court. As we've seen increased revenues come in on the court side, we've also seen a slight increase in regards to the fees associated with that. And as we move forward in the presentation, I'll kind of highlight what some of the additions in regards to individual departmental budgets we've done, whether that be in regards to wish lists or just basic need due to inflation or need for maintenance on fleet vehicles and such. This is just really a summary of the pie chart we just saw. As I said earlier, the city continues to make a big investment in public safety. Police, dispatch, fire, and EMS make up roughly 58% of the budget. Courts and warrants, investment in buildings and grounds, and also on the IT side continues to be a priority as we move forward with the various IT systems we utilize at the city level. Some of those are either meeting their end of life cycle, I guess, or at the same time, I mean, certain softwares are constantly updating to newer versions and such. And we're just kind of keeping in track with that, but at the same trying to be conservative in the manner in which we approach spending. The next slide is going to be a summary of not only the budget going into this year, where we are as of today as a year-end estimate, and then also kind of a summary of what y'all have in front of you tied to the various expenditure side on the different departments. Next slide is the proposed general fund total revenues for 2025 are projected to be 10,307,575, which, as we said earlier, is a little over a 3% increase from last year. And the expenditure side, we are anticipating around 10,180 in expenditures, and that's roughly around 8% of increase from last year as well. In order to remain competitive, we are currently running in our model a 1% COLA and a 2% merit is included in the proposed budget. So highlighting some overall changes, then moving into some more departmental changes. Really, one of the biggest things driving our budget over the past few years, especially last year and kind of similarly this year, is the healthcare costs. This year, we were quoted around a 7 to 8% increase in healthcare costs. The last I talked to Michelle, who's with Crandall, we did receive one other bid, but it did come in higher than our current carrier, which is United. Currently, there are 72 of total employees participating in the city healthcare plan. If that trend kind of follows, we tend to budget because we are not, we are still approaching the enrollment phase. But as budgeting to remain conservative and also make sure that we account for everything, we do budget as if everyone chooses to participate in the plan. If the trend kind of follows what we saw this year, there may be an additional excess in that expenditure item of around $140,000. But at this time, we are currently budgeting if everyone was participating in the healthcare plan prior to enrollment. Other than that, the city has previously contributed $200 towards employees participating with family and child plans. Some highlights of the proposed budget are, as we've been talking about, there's an increase in sales tax and an increase in the property valuations. I'll get a little more in depth now about kind of what we've looked at departmentally. There's been police department equipment replacement, upgrades in the city IT system, city hall building and repair, and maintenance for the buildings around us. All these are in the proposed budget that we have before you, as well as I'll kind of highlight some of the staff incentives that were some of them implemented last year, but were also part of last year's budget and continue to be in this year's budget as well. As y'all did last year, y'all had put $10,000 for a tuition reimbursement accessible to all city employees to take higher education classes. That has been worked into this budget as well. There is bilingual employee differential as well as the certification pay. And I believe that was raised to a max of $15,000 last year. 1,500. Oh, I'm so sorry. I apologize. Yes, I apologize. Yeah, $1,500. Yeah, so kind of running through what we saw as some of the increases and also what's kind of working into the budget that we put together. There is additional personnel costs with the expiration of ARPA. There were 5 total employees that was previously drawing on ARPA. Those have now been rolled into the departmental budgets 2 of those were on the police side, 2 on the public works, and 1 on the code enforcement as well. We've also seen, as everyone else has around, inflationary increases tied to supplies, fuel, and vehicle maintenance. Having gone around, having some discussions with the various departments, some of the various bids that they've been getting, maybe 6 or 7 months ago, they come back around and have discussions with those individuals. They've seen on their end that's a lot of times those bids have increased, not only somewhat significantly, so we continue to see that as we're working through. On the admin side, we've currently moved an employee from underneath the admin department over to Public Works. On building and grounds side, there was increase in the hazardous waste disposal of $5,000 or $7,000 for a disposal of twice a year, as well as we've invested a little more money in the building and grounds maintenance. In regards to the IT budget, as I said earlier, some of the softwares we utilize were implemented, I'd say around 7, 8 years ago. Some of those are still, well within their use, but there is a slow movement towards to continuing to upgrade our IT systems and also, I guess, remain open to what those costs may be changing on a year-to-year basis. So there's a $31,346 increase due to monthly costs associated with O365 and data backup. Also, in addition, there's an ExecuTime model. So we both utilize ExecuTime on kind of the timekeeping aspect, and then Encode on more to the accounting side. And part of this increase kind of ties those two in together in a little more seamless manner. There's also been an increase in regards to the internet service and the telephone service as well. So we've worked that into the IT budget at this time. Looking at the City of Helotes Police Department, in meeting with the police department over the past couple months, there was definitely a need to go ahead and replace the existing service weapons to a 9mm. Really in talks with the department, that allows for a lower ammunition cost. Right now, we're working in that to be $17,517 to move to the 9mm. But at the same time, there is an opportunity for there to be a buyback program on the previous service weapons, whether that be to the police officers themselves or the individuals providing the weapons. There's just been talks about the different options in regards to buyback. So we do know that in regards to that $17,000 number, that there may be, some money that we see back in revenue at some point in time once we go ahead and complete that switch.
Roughly almost half.
Yeah, and I've been told, around there. Also in talks with the police department, they had a need for tasers, a non-lethal option in roughly, I think we priced in 12 T7 tasers. And if I knew exactly what those were, I'd tell you. But right now it's around $7,861 a year for 5 years. The other thing in talking with them was their allowance on uniforms, their need for, more than one uniform option. We have increased that to $900 per officer, as well as increasing the anticipated fleet, the fuel costs tied to the fleet. They're still waiting on some vehicles to be, I guess, in which they've put in for, but still haven't received. But we do anticipate once those come online, even today, we see an increased fuel cost as of now. And because we have been waiting on delivery of some of those vehicles, some of the existing vehicles we're utilizing have seen an increase in the vehicle maintenance tied to them at this time. As I spoke to earlier, we have seen a good increase in the municipal court fees and fines that we've been taking in year to date. On top of that, our fees associated with the court have also gone up. The first tab you see right here would be contingent on a city council resolution. But one of the things that the department had asked for was more court operating costs, $15,000 tied for the prosecutor and $7,500 for municipal judges. As we have seen us increase the amount of just the amount of traffic, I guess, we've had in our court window, we've also seen an increase in the fees associated with processing all of the increased revenue. Right now, we are working in $100,000 additional court fees. We continue to look at that line item, but right now I feel like the $100,000 increase right now will definitely cover what we've seen in regards to an uptick in those processing fees.
Just a quick note I went through that has two components. One is slight inflation, it appears, and the other due to volume. So increased tickets require increased processing, which requires increased cost. So that's scalable, if you will, a scalable expense matched to some scalable revenues. So
I know in the workshop there was a disconnect with, so that number is.
That number has gone down from the workshop, but as we have looked into it and we've gone through invoices over the previous quarters. And really what we saw one quarter at a number which we anticipated. The preceding quarter was significantly higher, which was what we were talking about in the workshop. And then we've since also gotten the invoice for this most recent quarter, which falls more in line with not the previous quarter that was significantly higher, but the quarter before it. So, I mean, what it appears to be is that there are two different softwares on that level in which those payments are made. I'm not at a point to say that for some reason that software didn't take into account our initial payment, because we have record of it and it has, you know, a statement and an invoice number attached to it. But even if for some reason that higher statement that we saw is true, I do feel like we are seeing an increase in the fees in general, and budgeting for it going into next year, given where it looks like those revenues will be, is probably a safe way to go about it. Especially given that I think the number that we had budgeted this year, even if we were tracking to the smaller number, that would have been still not enough to kind of cover what we were looking for in regards to the court fees tied to our operation on the court side. In regards to Public Works, they're in need of a radio upgrade. We've added $13,000 to that line item. Their existing radios will fall out of service completely in 2025. One of our items that we had discussed, me, the departments, and also the departments with the mayor as well, was the capital replacement project of $55,000 tied to City Hall building exterior repairs. That's to repair fascia boards, eases, and repaints and seals. I believe that should be to all City Hall buildings. And also, as I mentioned on the admin side, but wanted to mention again on the Public Works side, their department on the salary side and also worked into their healthcare costs. They did bring in another employee under the Public Works department, which was transferred over from the admin side. This is the estimated general fund balance as you see in your binders right now, per the projected year-to-date projections, and then also tied to the proposed budget. Last year over this year, we continue to see not only revenues come in, but also accounting for expenditures. So as we move towards the adoption date of the 26th, that number could change slightly given the expenditures and revenues. But we continue to see a healthy rise in the fund balance per the end of this year. I think, you know, really highlighting on what was brought up about 4 or 5 slides ago, the support we had seen from ARPA had allowed for us to take care of a lot of city needs. and also at the same time have various city employees being paid through that grant. As that grant goes away, I think you see in the 2025 proposed fund balance that where, yes, we may see a slight increase or maybe stay relatively flat. We still are budgeting pretty conservatively in trying to fall well under anticipated revenues while also staying conservative in our revenue estimates. So this is general fund balance reserve by months. Kind of follows the same trend I was saying earlier. As we close out this fiscal year, we do anticipate, an increase in that fund balance. But as we move into next year, that may stay a little more relatively flat. And what you see is that anticipated number up against the increase in expenditures that we have worked into this budget. Right here is kind of a summary of that. This is our year-to-date projection, and that number tracks kind of what you saw in the most previous slide. Those departmental expenditures, as I said a minute ago, may possibly increase as we do have some stuff coming in year to end, and also taking into account just some of the various departmental projects that were tied to this year that, as the year ends, it may have taken a little more time to get those projects online. But specifically, I know that, there's some projects tied to public works that they had been anticipating that are finally kind of starting to get invoiced for and move forward. So that number on the expenditure side might continue to rise slightly. Going into next year, or actually this is a summary of this year. As the previous slide said, we anticipate a fiscal year in fund balance of $9,257,000. The GFOA recommends fund balances of at least 3 months of operating expenses. Given that figure, that would be roughly $2.5 million. And at the 2 months, which is the city policy, that's a little closer to 1.7, or right under 1.7, 1.69.
So what's that in months?
And if you go to the previous slide, I think it was showing
10.8.
Yeah. Well, this estimate is the 13.2. Yeah, 10.8 going into next year. That's right.
So it's going down.
Yes, it is going down. Yeah.
That's what I expected to see. All right.
And this is kind of how we see next year, based on the proposed budget you have before you. There's revenues of 10,307,000, expenditures of 10,180, which allows for around $126,000. We have done a transfer to capital replacement annually for the past couple of years. Right now, we have that figure worked in at 190,000. As I said earlier, and the mayor kind of alluded to also, there are expenditures tied to healthcare that, in order to be conservative and also kind of make sure that we plan for any event, that we are working into the healthcare cost side. As we saw this year, and as we have seen traditionally, not every employee will participate, more than likely, in the healthcare provided by the city. And if that is the case, going into next year, as we work through that process, there may be a little money on that expenditure side. So as we have what we presented to you today, we continue to remain, under the revenue amount that we anticipate going into next year with a conservative estimate, but at the same time, wanted to make sure that not only wish lists and departmental need is met, but also able to provide services, but also provide what is needed to the employees as well on the healthcare side. Oh, and I think this is a second slide, yeah. And then right up next would be the proposed fee schedule is actually in the binder, I believe you have before you. The public hearing would be set for September the 12th. I'll probably move into the tax rate presentation here, which is a little more in depth, just talking about what we received in regards from the tax assessor. And then as it's currently on the calendar, we have September the 26th for the consideration and adoption of the proposed budget, as well as the tax rate that we brought before you. If there's any questions, yeah.
Sir, that's not actually appropriate for citizen, sir, it's not appropriate and not allowed. Actually, this is a conversation for the council members. I apologize. It's citizens to be heard is an opportunity to speak at. It cannot be interrupted with the.
And you may want to let them know there will be public hearings on this.
There will be public hearings of which you can come and speak and get all your information. Again, that one will be on September 12th would be your opportunity to come and speak on every topic.
And you can also email the council and we're happy to meet with you.
I only live 5 houses down from you.
What's that?
I only live down the street from you, what you talk.
This is true.
So I'd like to, I have a couple of points to make, but I'd like to open up, make sure there's any questions along the way specific.
I don't, so I see pretty much what we talked about at the workshop, so I'm good with that. I personally just want to say thank you, Daniel. So for you, those of you who don't know, he literally got hired and then about a month later, the way things unfolded, he's running this year's budget, which is, you're doing an amazing job, and yeah, thank you.
I appreciate that. I couldn't have done it without the help of, the other people in admin, Selena and Diana Lopez, who's recently come on as well. She's been a great help in helping me with my projections, not only on the salary, but the healthcare side.
Thank you.
John? Matt?
So I know you don't have like healthcare numbers, because this is like significant.
I do have, we do have estimates based on what Michelle provided on where we will end this year annually, and then also what she anticipates that number will be next year.
Yeah, so what I found in your binder is we give members like close to $10,000 it costs us to insure them.
Mhm.
So if there are members that don't,
That's where that
number
excess.
piles up quick.
Yes, exactly, very
Okay,
much.
so is there a ballpark? I'm like,
I think we've, yeah,
Roughly 140,000, which I'm gonna cover here.
yeah, I think right now, as I
ones that
said,
don't.
we've been, I think the last number we saw was around 72 participating in.
Okay.
So that would leave roughly around anywhere from 15
to 18.
to 18 not participating.
But that
Yeah.
is curious.
And then at that 9,000,
Yep.
10,000 number you said,
it's-
yeah, that's kind of what you'd have
it's
there.
closer to 10 than 9, but
Yeah, I would, yeah, exactly, yeah.
so that piles up significantly. Okay. And then how long, maybe it's more of a question for Mayor, but how long are we gonna keep this 10.8 month reserve?
So I'll cover that here in just a
Okay.
second specifically, because that's one topic I want to roll into.
No problem.
Okay, so I want to bring a couple points of clarification on some items. Start with the insurance, we're right there immediately. We are waiting for open enrollment to find out exactly how many people will enroll. We do anticipate our insurance, what do we want to call our broker, estimated based upon who's currently enrolled in the programs that they're enrolled in. Our cost and our baseline policy will stay the same coverage, but that cost increased from $752 a month to $813 a month. And there are associated costs that go through that. Be meeting with the employees tomorrow to describe specific issues and costs in various programs. We do offer 2 additional tiers that are higher level if they want to pay up for better coverage, and we have 1 tier that's lower. It's basically a high deductible plan, and it's a lower cost, and so anybody that takes that plan, we contribute the difference between what we're paying for everybody else into a HSA for that person. It will continue that. This does Last year, we voted to, when we adopted the budget, we adopted it with a $200 a month stipend for families that opted to have dependent care. That was a temporary measure to be reviewed annually. Taking a look at what we have accomplished, it looks like it would be my recommendation that we continue that $200 stipend this year. We are, however, seeing some benefits. 3 years ago, one of the things that I thought outside of the box was to do subscription services for ER and urgent care. And that amount is still just $20 a month per employee, with the option of employees adding family members at their own cost if they wanted to add them for that, which gives, I believe, $35 flat rate for urgent care and $150 flat care for an ER visit, which is much less than the cost that they would have to pay out of pocket for utilizing our insurance. The idea of that was to decrease insurance claims, which would allow us to have lower insurance premiums. But unfortunately, we ran into a lot of extreme health care issues the year following the COVID injection. Ironic. And we suffered 30% increases, then 45% increases, and we were told we're going to have another 45%. But I think we saw some decrease in our emergency care, and we actually ended up with an average increase of what turned out to be about 8%. And so what we're starting to see is kind of a cresting, and what I hope is that we'll start to see the decrease in the benefits of what we decided to do with the subscription service having an effect. So that is all positive news. When we take a look at final numbers, if in fact we do have some people that continue opting out because they have better insurance with their spouses, this will allow us to have a little bit of surplus money that I would like to address towards some cost of living increases on salaries. Right now, we just have 1% plus staff decided. We have 3% for raises. Staff had indicated that they really would like to have a portion of that allocated to merit. And so what we've done through a lot of discussions, come up with a system where 2% would be allocated towards merit. So individuals will undergo performance reviews and will get either 1%, 2%, or 3%. But department by department will be averaged based upon, I guess, baselined on their average performance, if you will. It may be that everybody's right on line and everybody gets the same. There might be a little bit less, some there may be a little bit more, but that'll be within the discretion, but everybody will get the cost of living address. So any excess that we have here through the results of final insurance premiums, if there can be, I'm anticipating when all said and done, maybe $90,000. I'd like to move that over towards cost of living. But we'll have that presentation unless there's anybody that is objecting to that. A couple other items. You noticed on our budget, we had an 8% increase in costs and a 3% increase in revenues. That means we have a 5% decrease in our net operating. So we're still at a surplus currently of 126,000. But that is before our transfer, which we've been traditionally doing $200,000 to capital improvement. Right now, I've got 190,000 plugged in, which means we're going to be short about 63,000. Based on if anticipated signups and having 140,000 left wiggle room, that differential will allow us to be able to have the money to be able to address for cost of living, as well as be able to still continue to contribute 190, maybe $180,000. But those fine-tuned numbers will be presented in our next presentation. But again, unless there's any objection, that's a direction we'd like to move forward to in operations. The last item is sales tax. Sales tax suffered at times as much as $500,000 a month during this construction period. It's coming to a close. We've had some casualties of businesses throughout this past year more than a few that are continuing to hang on for dear life with light at the end of the tunnel with the construction clearing up, school year starting. The economy has been unhelpful with significant inflation here over the last 4 years, but we are anticipating a stabilization. But going back to our months of reserves, when we took over, we were down around 2.5 months worth of reserves when I was first elected. And while that is a figure that is bandied about as an appropriate reserve, that's usually for larger cities. I think San Antonio, $1 billion budgets, 2 months is fine because they could have a massive issue, what we would consider massive issues, and it's just a blip because of how large the city is. Smaller cities do need more reserves to endure something such as construction on the road. Our savings and our direction has led us to recover what I had a 5-year plan, 5 to 7 year plan, we accomplished in actually 2.5 years to get up to 8 and 9 months, which I believe is a long-term goal to be level out at. We actually overshot and got to 14.9 months earlier this year. We knew right away, though, that that was the cresting point. In fact, we're now projected to already fall down to finish off at 13 and change. And by the end of next year, we're already going to be down to 10 and change. The concern here is that we don't develop a long-term downward trend because that leads us to zero, and zero leads us to layoffs and payroll cuts. We're looking at a $10 million budget, 7.5 million of it is labor costs. So it's all about labor in our budget. So what we have to do is be diligent to make sure that this cresting, while we anticipate it to come down, that we're not aiming for 2. What we're aiming is to level out at 8, such that any surpluses then can be, again, more appropriately and generously dictated towards employee cost, benefits, and wages, et cetera. So with that extra explanation, is there any additional questions on this end? No. Sir?
I'll write them down.
Okay.
And then we'll talk, that way I can formulate a little better.
Sure. Sure.
When I got training, when I went on council from TML, they actually said for cities our side, it's ideal between 3 and 6 months of reserves. So when you just keep that in mind.
I go to a ICMA, International City Manager Association meeting the last 3 years. And I sit in a lot of finance meetings up there, and they have professionals come from literally all over the globe. It's international. And we had this topic, and I actually, during the middle of the seminar, asked that question, considering a small town. They responded that 6 to 9 months for a small town is actually very appropriate. Most of the cities, there are a lot of small towns represented there because there are thousands of city managers that show up there. But a lot of those standards are based on much larger budgets. We were talking with somebody that managed a town in the Northeast that had about 19,000 people. Their budget is $110 million for 19,000 people. Our budget is 10 million for 13,000 people. So when you see that differential, when you're dealing with $110 million on a city not much bigger than us, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months is a lot of money. When you're dealing with $9 million, 9 months is not that much money. And any type of disturbance, particularly if we had something with a large employer or large there, that our 10 months would evaporate in roughly 1 month or 2 months. It's that big. And so there are some issues that we are contemplating. That's why we are precarious in our diligent in our relationships with our business partners. So it seems a lot according to national standards and levels, but those national standards and levels are not built on politicized budgets.
Yeah, I don't have any questions.
All right. There is no action at this time. There's just a discussion. I have not heard any objections to ideas or concept of moving forward of where to place additional funds if they become available. So we will continue down that path with our anticipated, and we will bring back at the next public hearing a finalized version, because that by that date we will have final numbers.
So we can go to the tax rate presentation very
Yes, sir.
quickly?
Let's go and quickly cover tax rate.
And the following will be a kind of short summary of what we saw in regards to what we received from the tax assessor. City is required per Chapter 26 of Texas Property Code to determine and publish the no new revenue tax rate and the voter approval tax rate, decide how much revenue is needed and calculate the rate required to raise that amount, publish notices, and if the proposed tax rate will exceed the no new revenue tax rate, hold one public hearing and adopt a tax rate. So currently, and I think we may have seen this in the previous presentation as well, but the tax rate for this year was the 0.311455. What we received from the tax assessor was a no new revenue tax rate of the 0.307683. The voter approval tax rate of the 0.316419. We're currently proposing an M&O tax rate of 0.270805 and an INS tax rate of 0.039195. All these fall in line to give you the tax rate that we talked about a second ago, the 31 cents.
Any discussion on this?
And just kind of a summary of the both. We're, above the no new revenue rate, but we are below the voter approval tax rate in our proposal. Last slide right here, I believe. We propose the 0.31. This is the same M&O breakdown that you just saw and the INS breakdown as well. And this will also be something that would be a public hearing set for Thursday, the 12th of September, and would be an item to adopt on the 26th of September, Thursday as well. And I guess kind of open it up for questions or anything.
Yes, so a lower municipal tax rate on property, a lower property tax rate is a healthy environment. Is that what I'm understanding here? Because we have businesses that are pulling the weight.
No. So what we have here is M&O is our maintenance and operations.
Yes.
So all our staff and whatnot. INS is really interest and sinking fund for our debt. So as we pay off debt, what we're looking here is, and that's really the rate and where everything kind of is coming out of. Sometimes our M&O increases slightly due to the amount of, like, for example, we moved from ARPA over, so we saw a slight increase in that. We took on 8 new employees, over the last year for PD. And so M&O increases sometimes to that to cover that. Sometimes that is offset by if we have increased number of houses. Well, then we have a rate, we can afford to have a smaller rate on a larger number of houses because we're getting to a total dollar amount that we have to equal. So as we see debt payment go down, that's the extent of what our future tax rate decreases are looking at, roughly 3.9 cents. There's not much you can decrease in M&O, and also we have a massive house explosion, but which would increase the need for more employees, and so that bounces out there. Got it. Oh, thank you. Okay, there's no action required on this item, so with no further discussion, we'll move on. We need item number 10. Look for a motion a second to discuss and take action. Item number 10, which will be setting a public hearing.
Number 9.
Does need
That-
discussion.
I'm sorry, excuse me. We need a motion and a second for item number 9 to discuss and take action on setting the proposed tax rate 2024 ad valorem property tax. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
By Cato and Merchant by second. Okay. Any comments? No, that's fine. Comments? Anybody else comments? Okay, all in favor of setting?
Mr. Mayor, this one does have to
We need a voice vote for this.
So we're gonna do a roll
No,
call
Just for
vote
the tax rate.
for the tax rate.
So
So
roll call vote for the tax rate.
a roll call vote. Okay, you wanna? Councilmember
Aye.
McCollum?
Yep.
Aye, yes. Councilmember Merchant? Aye. Councilmember Taylor? Aye. Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
And Councilmember Sanders?
Aye.
Okay, that is a roll call vote, 5 in favor, 0 opposed. Motion carries. Now we're looking for a motion in a second to discuss, take action on item number 10, which will be setting the public hearings for September 12th at 7 p.m.
So I move we discuss, take action on agenda item number 10.
Motion by Sanders, second by
Second.
Stones.
Nothing to discuss, which date seem fine for me.
Okay, no further discussion. All in favor of approving item number 10 is written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. This time, we're having a discussion on the proposed fiscal year 2025 municipal fee schedule.
I believe that fee schedule should be in your binder as well. I mean, I'll point you to the right tab.
And again, while you're pulling that up, we are, this will also come back before for approval. So if there's anybody that in your review of this or subsequent review of this, see that there's a fee that you want adjusted further, please reach out to us and adjust with commentary. We have a couple that's really kind of presented. So if you have any discussion on these items or anything that you want,
So, Mr. Mayor, I don't understand if I don't have a fee that I necessarily want changed. I just want one of the fees explained better because it was brought to my attention. There's some confusion from businesses who have paid the permit and didn't need to explain a little bit who needs the permit, and it would just be a couple sentences noting. So
Okay.
I should come to staff later on. We don't need to.
no, you can ask it right now and that way we can have it to, which
So on page 12, under food and beverage fees, item E, special event health permit. Starting in January, the city began using that line item to charge a sampling fee for marketplace vendors. Vendors who prepackage their samples at market days in the farmers market do not need a permit to sample. Unfortunately, last weekend, one of our vendors paid a permit and did not need it because she could not get a hold of city staff. And according to the fee schedule, it's non-refundable. So I would just ask if staff would consider adding to this following information to that, either the email that goes out to the vendors from our communications department and or putting this statement, Helotes marketplace vendors who prepackaged samples are not required to obtain a permit for sampling from the city of Helotes.
We can add that.
Thank you.
First is happy to see the fees didn't go down. I mean, did go down or didn't move, right?
Yeah, there were no
It didn't
changes.
go up.
Yeah, there were no changes.
Except for we added the tree maintenance.
Yes, that was incorporated housekeeping,
And then some pass-through fees with our veterinary services.
days of Allah, their 5% annual increase.
So that's good, because last year I had a feeling that we were trending, we might be trending, not saying we were, that we might be trending increasing fees. And so I'm glad we're staying in, staunchly where we're at. So that's good. And it's a comment, it's not specific to any fee. I have received feedback from several people in the community about, has Helotes ever thought about doing a senior citizen reduction permits? Reducing fees for
Like
somebody
for building?
65 and on fixed income. I don't, if you want, I could actually go and maybe identify some, but that's a comment.
It would be very helpful if there's some in particular. Some fees are just simply, we have to cover the cost of inspectors going out there. And we can't really, charge $30 for something that costs us $100, right? But I have seen, I'm still flabbergasted by how we ended up with so many fees. And as you will know, anybody's been paying attention the last 3 years, we have gone through and cut fees or reduced fees or eliminated fees. I will say that there will be a few more fees brought up when we bring this again, that I believe Michael's gonna bring up some. We have some flood water. There's like 5 categories and we don't use any of them. There's only one category that we use. So there might be some redundancies, something we can, again, housekeeping, eliminate fees that we don't use at all. This is an arduous task, because you can see there are 7 million fees apparently. We need to address them. There's pages and pages, and we continue. I encourage every one of our staff members to deal with fees if there's any they see that they feel, to bring them up. And there are a few that will be brought up, I believe, by Michael, and one, like, for example, Dex. I don't think it needs to be as much as what it is. We've reduced, like, pool fees were reduced from somewhere as 2,500 to a flat rate of 600. So we have done big steps to reduce the nickel and diming, despite occasional citizen comment that we nickel and dime. We lose money in the nickel and dime period, quite honestly, but some of these are just to keep everybody on the same par with code.
I'll bring that to city staff's attention.
Yeah. We can look into it.
Mr. Mayor, the one area where you talk about senior citizen discounts that I hear complaints about is the tree trimming fees. My husband and I are able-bodied. As middle-agers, we do it ourselves, but that's not going to be forever. And so some of our older residents feel like it's unfair because they have to hire people, and then the trimmer passes that fee on to them. So I think that would make the most sense if we're going to look at that.
That's fair.
It's not a huge fee. It's $28.50, I think, if that's the right fee.
Okay.
What, do you know, Corey, do you know what fee that is?
It is X.
X.
Oh, 28.50?
What would they like it to be? It's pretty low, but we'll see if we can address that, or have a senior, or maybe just reduce that fee in general. Let's mark that for review.
Okay.
And we will address that. Any other comments?
Yes.
Okay,
So another thing for staff to look at with animal control,
Okay,
can we eliminate these licensing fees for pets? I'm sure everybody in this room has their pet licensed with the city of Helotes.
Yep.
And with that being said, what did you get for your money? You got a little tag. I think if we can eliminate these fees and require microchipping, that's the goal of it anyway, right? We want to know where your pet is and where to take the pet, should we find the pet. And there's really no reason to license anything.
and there certainly isn't a need for annual or lifetime. I don't know how many
No.
people buy an animal just for 1 year. It
Right.
begs the question, what are they doing with the animal at the end of the year?
Right. So I think there's probably 12 pets. And they all belong to the people in this room that are licensed, right?
I hope so.
So, right. So I mean, this is one of those things we could probably eliminate, because what happens if we find an unlicensed pet anyway? We're just looking for the owner.
Yeah,
If we can just require chipping, I think that'd be a good idea.
we can require that. So is the direction to draft an ordinance for your review, because that would require an ordinance as well? Requiring
Sure.
microchipping.
Yeah, I mean,
That's the direction?
if everybody thinks that's a legit.
Well, that would be something we
So
vote on.
it would be eliminating the licensing fees from the fee schedule. That's one thing. Requiring microchipping would be through an ordinance, which is a separate matter.
Okay,
And then, of course, like, let's just say my dog is caught, it's not microchipped, it's a violation of the city ordinance. Yeah.
just pay for the cost of micro. I mean, well, we can discuss that
Yeah,
later.
but yes, we can look into that.
Yeah,
To eliminate.
idea. Daniel might have some input on that.
On microchipping?
Not Daniel. Our pet control
Okay,
guy, I can't remember his name.
Stacy, no.
okay.
All right,
That's all.
So microchipping, yes, we will look into that.
Thank you.
I believe a good bit of the moving violation fees are too low. I find it amusing that a moving violation for an unsafe lane change is the same cost as jaywalking. Jaywalking seems a little high, both of them. At the same time, some of the other fees just seem like they haven't been increased for the times.
Okay.
So whether that's an opportunity or I'm not sure what standards being used to come up with these fees, but I think they could be up.
Okay.
Is he,
Like maybe we can incorporate,
is he the court fees?
no, they actually the fine. And again, most of these fees and fines end up not even coming to us or pass through to the state. But I would like and maybe suggest we can incorporate our police captain into some discussions on what areas, there needs to be some sort of deterrent value of a fine. Fine that's 38 cents doesn't deter anybody, but one that's $1,000 could be onerous, right? So we have to find something that's
I think we found that.
reasonable.
Davis Ranch, right?
Yeah, and so, but let's engage in that conversation for some review on
What was
that.
the conversation? What was the item?
Just to take a look at traffic violation tickets in general. Some of them seem low, some of them might be high, but just we'll kind of do a review.
Okay.
Perhaps can sit down with PD and kind of review those and get some suggestions from that department.
Certainly not think a seatbelt at $50 is way too low.
Frank, correct me if I'm wrong. I thought the court fees are also set by the presiding judge. In a
Yeah,
way,
the fines are,
the fines are,
not the fees.
not the fees.
Okay. All right. Are any other comments? There's no action on this item, so we'll move on to the next item. Looking for motion second to discuss and take action on item number 12 as written.
Mr. Mayor, move we discuss and take action on agenda item number 12.
Motion by Sanders, second by Sones. And at this point, we'll like to call for our executive director from the EDC
And the president.
and the president of the EDC, Blaine Lopez, and Glenn Gould. I guess Blaine is going to be speaking with us today.
I got all dressed up, so.
All
I
right.
get to speak tonight.
Take
My name-
that jacket out for a spin, huh?
Yeah,
Right
I
on.
know, feels good. My name is Blaine Lopez. I live at 13110 Trotting Path. I am the current president of the board of directors for the Economic Development Corporation of the city of Helotes. So thank you all. Thank you all for having me here tonight, council people and Mr. Mayor. So what we got here in front of you all is I guess just to get a little bit of history. So I've been on EDC for 5 years now, and I know before I got there, there's been many discussions over the years about the Helotes Disc Golf and Fitness Park, what to do there, what can be done there. And over the years, there has been some nice improvements done. We've got a bathroom there now, which is great. We've got a water station, which is great. There never used to be water there, and we've added in the play park area. So good things have happened, but there's still some I guess there's still some needs that are needed in the park. We've seen over time there's been some deterioration of the equipment, some deterioration of the walking path. The parking has been expanded, but the parking's still tight. And then also we've gotten some feedback about ADA issues as far as access for the disabled citizens inside the park. So about a year ago, it's almost been a year now, believe it or not, that we made a commitment as the EDC. As part of our mission statement is to enhance the quality of life inside the city of Helotes. That, enhancing the quality of life obviously brings in residences, which then kind of spurs also the business side of it, and then rolls all the way back up into the sales tax, which we had just a long discussion on. So enhancing quality of life, parks is always a big thing. That when it comes to quality of life, parks is always a discussion that comes up. So about a year ago, as we were going into budget, we made a commitment as the EDC board to say we're going to start putting in money into park improvements specifically for that park. And in that, we said, well, let's form a committee, what we call the Parks and Community Enhancement Committee, that we could meet and discuss what some of these possible improvements could be. So we had a couple of council people that joined us. Thank you all for joining us. And we had myself and the two other members from the EDC that met starting in, I think our first meeting was in January of this year. We had, I think, 3 subsequent meetings after that. What we came out and agreed in the meeting was none of us are landscape architects or park planners, and said we really need to come up with a plan, not only of what will fit and be sustainable, but also understanding cost and how we're going to roll these costs into budgets every year, and whether it needed to be phased or whether it need to be, it could be done in 1 year. And so there was a lot of questions that we just didn't have answers to. So we decided the best plan of action was to actually put out a request for qualifications to landscape architects and park planners. And then we put that out on April the 3rd of this year. And we got 11 submissions back in, which was great. We were very excited to actually have that many submissions in. So the professional request for qualifications went out, got them in. We actually had them reviewed independently, so we did a kind of a blind taste test on it and didn't share our thoughts with each other. And we actually all came to the same unanimous first selection, which was Burdick Consulting as our first choice. So interesting thing, this is just more of knowing or a fact, is when it comes to professional services in RFQs, you cannot base anything on cost. It's all based upon qualifications. And then after you get the most qualified, then you go into basically contract negotiations with them. So it's not a low bid process like you see with a lot of things on the construction side. It's actually based purely on qualifications. So our first discussions that we had with Burdick, they were at a cost of $40,000 for their services. Our board then approved a maximum of $30,000. Our executive director went back, talked with the consultant, giving them the basically a ceiling on it. There did have to be a removal of some of the scope of services of what he originally had, but he got it down to that 30,000, but kept in the elements that we felt were important for us within that statement of qualifications or within their proposal scope of work. So just a few things. I know y'all have read through this, so I'm not going to go through this verbatim of what it says here, but really what we're looking for is that expertise and innovation, right? Knowing they do this every day. They know it works. They know what products are out there, what are going to last, what works in our environment here in Texas. And also that comes in with the ADA consulting part, knowing what is accessible, what is inclusive. These are all big things that mean a lot to people in our community. Community-centric design, that's basically just focusing on getting the community involved, having their input. That was one of the things that we had to back off their scope for, just the full honesty. Originally, they were going to have big sit-down meetings where we'd have an open house and everybody come in. But in taking off some of that fee, we're now going to go through an online process. And then after the online process, if there's specific stakeholders that they need to meet or interview with, that could be done through Zoom or through some type of online. Next item, we have optimized use of space. So that's a big one. And I know y'all seen what the park's been going through here lately with our friends from SAWS and our friends from TxDOT are about to come through next, which hopefully won't have as much impact as SAWS has. But obviously seeing that sewer line go in, that sanitary sewer line, or what it's done to the park space, it really makes you think about, okay, what can be done here, and what do we got to think long term of what's right for the park, and what spaces do we have that can be utilized outside of the floodplain, because drainage is another issue that we're having at the park after rains. And so optimizing that space of what we have and the activities, both passive and active, of what we can do with is a big part of what they would be providing. Number 4 was a good one, and actually I give my hats off to Glenn on this one. Enhanced funding opportunities. So this is a good tidbit to know is, in order for us to apply for grants, whether they be state, federal, there are grants out there specifically for providing funding for parks. But in order to do that, the first question in an application is going to be, do you have a master plan? You know, it can't be just ask for money. So having this master plan in place and knowing what those costs are actually helps our case in going out and at least applying for some free money. So that was a big one that I thought was really important. I thank Glenn for coming up with that. And then competitive edge, you know, it's kind of a rough word, but competitive edge just really goes into, yes, the other cities are doing parks. You know, you can go to our neighbor and look up Leon Valley's website. Leon Valley, you know, amazingly, their population is not that far from us. It seems like it's huge, right? Because it's surrounded by San Antonio, but their population, I think, is sitting around, I think in the 2020 census was around 15,000. And they have an extensive parks plan and parks specific funding. So I think parks is just a big part of what is the growth of a city. We continue to talk about growth, quality of life. So parks is one of those things that I think we need to just put a little bit of focus on. Unfortunately, right now we're limited. We've got 2 park spaces. We've got the disc golf park and we've got the park here at City Hall. Unless we get donated some land or we're able to find some land to buy at market value that we can then donate to ourselves, really we're limited to those 2 spaces right now. So it's, again, a utilization, optimization of that space that we have and figuring out what's the best that we can do with it. So in that, you know, we're here at this point, since we're at an expenditure So, you know, we had the expenditure in our budget, so it's in our EDC budget, but since we're over the 10,000 mark, then we are coming to you for approval. So if you got any questions, please let me know.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your presentation and explanation. We're just gonna do this systematically. Councilmember Sanders opened it up, so I'll start with you, sir.
So Blaine, thank you. Very good presentation. Thank you, Glenn, as well. So I was one of the folks that got to participate on the team up through selecting the actual contractor, if you will, Burdett. Right?
Burdett, yes.
So I remember at the very, very beginning of this, when the team was formed, we weren't sure where it was going to go. I think everyone agreed there should be some kind of plan. We could debate about how professional it should be, but there should be a plan of some sort. But I remember during the early discussions, we talked about, well, we don't know what the cost will be. We'll deal with that when it happens. So I still support a plan, me personally. I can't supporting $30,000. That's where I'm at. I would like to be able, if it comes to us having to do it ourselves as a new team, forming council members and EDC to do that, I would lean that way versus supporting $30,000. That's my perspective. I just think it's too much for a very limited. If we had another 50, 60, 70 acres on top of that, then maybe that money's justified. But right now we're talking two very, very small spaces. And I think we would could agree maybe that there's not a whole lot we can do other than repair some of the stuff that's already there and maybe add one amenity of some sort. But I struggle with the 30,000, me personally. But I think there should be a plan, and I'd be more than happy to volunteer if we continue the committee, the team, in order to try to put something together, even if it doesn't have really cool looking pictures. That's my perspective.
Okay. Councilmember Solms, you seconded?
Yes, so I'm on the flip side. I agree, we need a master plan. However, I am not a professional park planner, nor the EDC board members. And if we're going to invest funds in this park, I think we need a professional to step back, especially now that you highlighted the grant aspect of this. There's also major issues with ADA compliance, and then not addressing that opens the city to liability. So I just think to get quality, you have to make an investment. And I agree, if anything, we need a designed parking lot and pave. Like, to me, that would be the highest priority for that park. And if anything, we might have someone come in and say, you have too much. It needs to be simplified. That's the kind of feedback we need from somebody who's a professional. So I support this.
Sir, I would have to agree with Councilperson Sons regarding the professional. I think that would be our best route. I'm not crazy about the cost, but I would imagine it's competitive.
Sir?
Yes, I got a couple things here. So I really like how comprehensive this could potentially be because we're hiring professionals, right? This is information that we couldn't possibly think of because I'm not an expert in park. I mean, I could tell you what citizens would like, but that doesn't go into how does it get done? And this is a how does it get done plan. I like this. So I do have a question. So what happens if we don't approve this?
Yeah, so it's, I wouldn't say it's going back to the drawing board, but it really goes into, if we did want to go the professional route and say, all right, well, maybe there's somebody out there cheaper, basically we have to go back out to the RFQ process, go through the evaluation process, go through our board approval and back here. So it's probably a 6-month delay or a 6-month process to then find out whether the next consultant is going to be, cheaper or not.
Or we'd go the Sanders route and kind of do it ourselves.
Right. Yeah. There's that option. there's an option to do it. It's just that you run the risk. There's the risks that are involved in what we do by what we think is right, ends up not being the right thing. And yeah, I've done some things like that at my house that I wish I would have done differently.
Did you get a permit for that?
Yeah, I did with my dogs.
I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I thought it was a very good presentation. I also struggle though with the cost. I know that, and Mayor Whitehead, correct me on this, but I know that he's provided considerable input on the design intentions for the park that he's gathered from talking with residents. You have this community enhancement committee, and I think to spend $30,000 on a document when you're still going to have to spend money on someone who's going to ensure that it's ADA and ADA compliant, infrastructure repairs, purchasing equipment, landscaping, the cost doesn't stop with just this document. I think that soliciting community input is something that could be done here. I don't think you have to pay a consultant to do an online survey. And I think that enhancing an existing park that has been enjoyed by many residents for a very long time does require a collaborative effort between the EDC and the council and our marketing department and our public works departments. But it doesn't require a $30,000 document. There does need to be a plan. I would think that among the people on the committee and then with Glenn's leadership, we could develop one internally because you're still going to have significant costs for all of these other components.
Yes. Yeah. There's still the construction part of it.
Right.
Yes.
Right. But it's not you're not starting from zero. It's an existing park. It does need a lot of work, and that's going to cost a lot of money. But I think the people on the committee or new people who could be added have a pretty solid idea of what needs to happen in the park. And as far as the design of it, you're going to still be paying other consultants and contractors to make sure that everything is done according to our codes and ADA compliance. So I have a problem with the cost.
I have a couple of comments and then we'll turn it over for vote. One clarification in the RFQ process, if this gets voted down, actually you go right to your number 2 and you can get a price from them, which may be more, it may be less. So I don't think it would take 6 months to go and ask the number 2 person if this was denied. I don't think that'd be necessarily a 6-month process to get pricing from the number 2. Would just be authorized to go and check with team 2. But I do agree in the benefit and benevolence of a plan and setting some sort of project forward. Both our parks were done without any plans, pretty much by in-house design with public works and previous staff, and fairly decent, including the sidewalks, the equipment, the bathroom facilities, the park, disc park, and then of course the new jungle gym out there. I think this started really because I inquired as part of EDC's directive is to, beautification of the city to help drive business. And so just looking in the start to really say, hey, is there something you guys want to do? You want to contribute money? Here's some ideas. My thought process was, a body weight gym, sport court / body weight exercise near where the playground equipment is, so parents could exercise in close proximity to their kids playing on the jungle gym. This is information that came back to me from extensive time out there and talking door to door with people through campaigns, et cetera. Similar results were given to some of the other council members, but we're looking at $60,000 to $100,000 worth of expenditures because there's not much else can do except for some parking, et cetera, which we can hire a parking lot contractor specifically here, increase our parking, turn that over to them. So to me, it's a challenge to spend $30,000 for $60,000 to $100,000 worth of improvements. I don't mind, and we went through this process. I honestly thought the price would be about $10,000 for some professional advice, hire somebody out, a consultant, pay them an hourly rate, and have them do a walkthrough and figure out and give us some suggestions, which would be another completely different scope of work for sure. But these were some of the thoughts that came through the process from the initiation when I first originally reached out to EDC for some expenditures. So I'm not opposed to a plan, but I'm just wondering about the scope and relative to what we're spending. We're not looking at spending millions of dollars. If we were looking at spending millions of dollars, it would be worth that type of investment or even more. But we're looking at spending 50 to 100,000, maybe $150,000, and that's a large percentage just for ideas. For generally, we do a pretty good idea in coming up with ideas for what we want there. But that's just some input.
Yeah. I don't know, though. That's the only thing we don't know is really what is the expenditure going to be in the park. I remember when actually I first got on EDC, there was almost $300,000 spent within that park that COVID came along and had that removed out of the budget very quickly. But that was almost an expenditure that happened for one item in the park. So
yeah, it was ill-fated. You have a splash pad that would have been animal and feces controlled and ridiculous. It was $500,000. I'm not sure who came up with that, but historically that was a ill-fated idea, perhaps.
I'm just giving examples of, like, we all think of what could go there, right? We have this idea of this and this idea of that, and we could put up this shade structure, but we're all over the place on it. And we really need somebody to tell us what's going to be sustainable over time.
Yeah, a couple of more points, if I might. This $30,000 is budgeted.
Yes, we have this.
Right check. Okay. The other thing is, we're all people of many talents in this room. Park professional, probably not one of them. Like, this is what these people do. And I think this would be excellent money spent. We are not just a thriving community. We're a community where people want to be. It's expensive to get a home here.
Mm.
We should spend this money on this park and our parks and make it better. I'm not a professional. We need one.
Any other comments before we have a vote? Okay, with no further discussion. All in favor of approve, right, agenda item number 1 here.
12.
All in favor of approving item number 12 is written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion carries 3-2. At this time, looking for a presentation by Mr. Glenn Goolsby, our Executive Director of the EDC, on the second and third quarter activities for fiscal year ending 2024.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and my apologies for not getting Q1 here a little bit sooner. That is totally on me. I think we were kind of busy trying to get our visitor center construction underway. And as you know, or may know, we've been on that project for about 7.5 weeks under construction. It's making a lot of progress on that project for us. They're doing all the walls are in, electrical's done, plumbing's done. AC's just about complete, about 90%, and they're doing insulation and sheetrock at this point. So right now, I would say we may have about 6 weeks left before it's complete. So we're kind of hitting that timeline as projected, just a few months later than what we originally thought. I don't know if you want me to go line by line, if you guys had time to review the document or not. So the EDC currently, on some of the organizational updates on June 4th and 5th, we moved out of our existing space into a temporary office so we could start the renovations on our business center. Our finance committee has begun, just like with the city, going through our budget process. That's going to be presented at the next EDC meeting, and it'll be at the subsequent city council meeting for a presentation. And we have those public hearings scheduled as well. On some of our incentive programs within the last 6 months, kind of the status, we've had 3 projects that were awarded That was H2O. So it's the water purification, not the T, just trying to make sure that we're clear on that one. RJ Fight Construction and Lone Star Barbecue Supply Shop. Those last two projects were companies that relocated and expanded their business here in Helotes. We did have three other applicants that had applied but did not receive funding because they did not meet the minimum eligibility criteria. I know Mayor had come in and asked how many projects to date have we funded. We have funded 16 applicants and we had 16 applicants and we've approved 10. I know I have in here some of the projects that were denied here recently, the Trinity Glen Rose Groundwater Conservation District, the Family Food Truck Park, and then we had an applicant that is it's a residence that was opening an art gallery. And obviously we did not feel that met the merits of the program. Subsequently, though, the Family Food Truck Park was encouraged to apply for another incentive program that we have, which is the targeted incentive program. It kind of opens up the scope and it also opens up the dollar amount that could be requested and awarded. Mr. Dempsey made a presentation to the EDC. That's one reason why there was kind of a delay between he requested from one program, we had to kind of run through it, determine he was ineligible, and then he applied for a second one, and hence he had already started some construction on that project. And then I believe that was approved for a little over 32,000. E-commerce grant, year to date, we had 12 applicants and we've approved half of them. The others, we had a couple withdraw their request and we had 2 denials on that one. The most recent projects that were approved were for Pliables and for the Meadows Frozen Custard. To hit the target incentive program again, we do have one other incentive we're working on, and that's part of the Bandera Ranch for the, let's say, the escalated cost of infrastructure improvements that they weren't anticipating when they initially presented that plan. TxDOT is requiring pretty extensive improvements on Bandera Road and Scenic Loop, where this property will have to incorporate basically the same thing we're seeing between 1604 and FM 1560. So they have to redo the signals, do in turn lanes and all that kind of stuff. So it's over $1 million added to their budget. Hopefully that one we'll be getting that one finalized soon and bring that before City Council. One of the other programs I think a lot of businesses get some benefit out of is our Google 360 business tours. I know as of doing this presentation, we've had 14 businesses that have participated this year alone, and I kind of listed those out for you guys. We have now, we just did 2 more this month, so we've exhausted all funding for this fiscal year, and we have 4 businesses that have requested tours for next fiscal year. So we're going to definitely plug that in the budget, and hopefully we get that one approved and continue. We do have one of our largest sales tax producers that is looking at a building expansion. They're still kind of in that process. I know there's the economy is wreaking havoc on quite a few businesses. So they also, I think, have a little bit of timeline with their current lease structure. So we're trying to see how we can help them expedite that and keep them here in Helotes. I think one of the really attractive projects we've done is there in Old Town Helotes with the traffic circle. We've got the rock stone wall that we've installed. We had an event a couple weeks ago where we showcase.
Couldn't be the one.
Wish you could have been there. 2 of our councilmen did attend, so you got to get a little sneak preview of an almost finished art sculpture. I truly feel it's pretty impressive.
It will not disappoint.
Yeah, it's really neat.
And once you see the actual finishes and everything on there, it's spectacular. And it's going to look perfect in that, in the traffic circle. And you could also see with the wire structure, it's not really going to obstruct the visibility for the flow of traffic. We anticipate the art piece will likely be done by the end of this month. We've got a few other engineering pieces and the platform that has to be installed. My best guess would be sometime in October, we might be able to do an unveiling of that piece. Let's see. I know we've had just kind of one of the timing issues. Several of our businesses, the leases have expired this year. And when they're going in to renegotiate, there has been a substantial increase in the rate the landlords were trying to get. And a lot of that has been driven by some of the newer projects in Helotes. So when the newest project hit, we're talking $32 a square foot for base rent plus $10 to $11 triple net fees. So other centers have seen that and they were trying to get something similar. I've been able to provide a lot of data to our local businesses to try to help negotiate and get that down, because it's getting to a point where the current revenues are not going to be able to cover some of the lease rates. So that is a service that we do when we're able to. We visited 23 businesses in the last 2 quarters. I did provide a list of those for you. And we also even try to help think outside the box. So we had one business that's not utilizing all of their space. They kind of scaled down their business, but they have a lot of lease space. And so she was able to create small office, like micro offices, honestly, little 10 by 10 rooms, and then put those on the market. We help advertise to get tenants in to help also increase revenue and pay for their lease space. And that's happened on 2 projects here. But something new that we put into this one, we're trying to see how much more information we can provide to council to see some of the struggles that businesses have, whether we're talking about individual tenants or we're talking about the development community or prospects. The only things I didn't highlight on this first graph was some components that are more site specific. So lack of parking is actually one of the biggest issues with the legacy development, which is kind of our newest project here in Helotes. I know they're trying to do a food hall, but every single one of the prospects we bring to the site, the first thing is there's not enough parking. So that the site has around 90 parking spots with 21,000 square feet of leasable space. Even if it's office or you're feeling 3/4 of it that way, when you have your employees and the restaurants have 20 or 30 employees, you don't have enough room for customers to get the amount of traffic they need to sustain the $40 a square foot lease rate. So I know we've been working trying to see if we can get a little more creative on neighboring properties to do parking agreements for overflow and all that. And that has proven to be a little bit of a challenge. And we're also trying to get kind of to steer the direction maybe away from the restaurants and more into an office use environment for that project. So I think I already kind of hit on our visitor center. The project definitely is moving forward nicely. And then community enhancement, obviously that item just got approved tonight, but we have spent the better part of 8 months, I guess, from when we approved our budget to get to this point. And so we're definitely excited to continue, and we'll be allocating funds in our next budget to implement a phased construction of whatever the plan kind of highlights for us. And I do agree that parking is going to be #1 on our list for the first phase. We've also approved playground equipment here for City Hall. And I reached out to Corey and he said that equipment has been ordered and should, knock on wood, be complete before the end of this fiscal year. I told him I would love to get that expenditure out and unveil that to the city. And one of the kind of the last projects we launched this year was our brick paver program. And that was just within the last month and a half, 2 months. So for those that don't know, we have 4x8 bricks that can be purchased on the EDC website. You can either get your name engraved, your business, you can commemorate an anniversary. There's options to have additional graphics or business logos if needed. And that money right now is being allocated for future art projects in and around Helotes. Man, I thought I was almost done. There's a couple more pages on here. So marketing initiatives. We're really trying to implement more marketing for Helotes to help offset some of the decrease in traffic. We're really on this last year trying to spend 20 to 30,000 on a few different marketing campaigns to highlight, I guess, a shop local campaign. I want to say visit because that's our website name. And then we're allocating more resources next year to really enhance that. Some of the fun things at the beginning of the year, we did 2 Fiesta medals for those that may or may not collect, may have a handful left. So we did a solar eclipse one to commemorate kind of a once in a 30-year solar eclipse here in Helotes. The weather did not hold out well for us on that one, but we did hand out 300 medals. Several of them, we passed them around to about a dozen different stores that could advertise, come do a viewing with us and kind of get a free Fiesta medal. We also did one for Visit Helotes and kind of did a similar thing, handing those out to some of the businesses. We also worked with Ken's 5. That one I was really pleased with. So we negotiated 2 Fiesta medal giveaways for Ken's 5 Fiesta medals. And the morning segment, we had 120 people go out to Old Town Helotes. So we did a kind of a simulcast out there, and we also got on their morning segment to highlight market days. That's good. That was the weekend after. And then the news, the midday segment came out. Bill Taylor came out, did a little on-air promotion for shopping Helotes and the uniqueness. We had over 200 people come out for the midday one. And we also worked with Vanessa here with the city of Helotes to get that off the ground and set up our little tent and had all the informational giveaways for Helotes. We continue to try to support some of the local big events. So we did contribute to the Helotes Cornyball Festival. And we're actually trying to work with them on a bigger package for next year, but a way to really promote and encourage people when they're leaving to shop local, to dine out here in Helotes. So we have used some of our analytical software so we can draw geo fences and it's tagging to your cell phone. So we know when people leave Cornyball where they're going afterwards. We get a lot of people here in Helotes. There's a lot of people though that will go nearby to eat. So we want to try to really focus on driving traffic to stay here in Helotes to keep those sales tax dollars. ESD and Associates is the marketing company we've hired. It's the one that the city and EDC have used for our website maintenance and for the last, I think, 4 years, I want to say. And one of the other interesting things that was kind of working in the background for quite a while with me and Blaine was working with SAWS to reevaluate sewer pro rata refund rates. So it's kind of an impact fee for any project going from Circle A all the way out to Scenic Loop. SAWS had so that was a sewer line that the city and EDC paid for, but SAWS did not calculate the rate correctly. So we've been working with them for actually quite a while, and we finally were able to get it amended because they were actually trying to assess it on the kind of depends how you want to look, the north and south side of Bandera Road, but there was no way for the south side to bore underneath Bandera Road to access it. So it really should just be calculated on the north side. So that's been implemented, and we should actually see a little bit of revenue coming in from that. So currently, during this period, we had 6 commercial projects under construction. We have one that is still pending. We're hoping to think they may have another amendment to their site plan coming next month. So the plan was to break ground August. Wish I could tell you they were still on that schedule. It's probably another month or two out before they break ground on some of the infrastructure for the Bandera Ranch, but they are moving forward. And then we continue. We have just a handful of commercial sites in and around Helotes, and we're still reaching out. We have hopefully a couple projects we're really pushing to be able to bring to a pre-development meeting first, and then see if they have some merit. I will say 2 of them are mixed use. Just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. And if you want to provide any direction or input on what you think might be acceptable, I would love to hear it so I can make sure that those things are addressed before they're presented, and hopefully they go through once and not multiple rounds presentations. So on the prospects, some of the things that we hear from them, low traffic count, that really applies to properties north of FM 1560 and Circle A Trail. We get a considerable, honestly, traffic drop. We have over 45,000 cars a day right here in front on Bandera Road, the main thoroughfare. But as soon as you get right past 1560, it drops to about 20,000. So that number is low for a lot of concepts, but we do have some more residential coming in. So that's starting to pick up. That's why you even saw Las Palapas here tonight. They do see the potential. And some of these projects, theirs is going to be a lot quicker, but some of them will take 1 to 2 years to develop. Land price has been another barrier. That's where we're trying to see how creative we can get with some of these developers to offset that gap if the project makes sense. Obviously, we can offer potentially incentive monies, or we can offer abatements, things of that sort for a period of time. Kind of the low traffic count follows with not enough density. It's just kind of one of those things when you have half-acre lots, you don't have apartments, you don't have townhomes. The density is not quite there for certain areas. And again, it applies a lot more to the north than it does the main commercial thoroughfare. Road construction has been a hindrance, absolutely. That's wrapping up. So that won't be as big of an issue for our main commercial thoroughfare. We've got a couple projects that'll be coming here, I think, in the next month or two, on some infill sites off 1560 and maybe even behind where HTO and KFC and stuff, that area.
I certainly appreciate you bringing that information. There's some very good information, particularly challenges that are being faced by the people you interview and meet with, and appreciate it's 2 quarters worth of information. I think that's very important to not substantiate the work of EDC. The EDC is doing good work, but really kind of give council a good idea of all the things that you do and the scope of work and interaction. And I appreciate that presentation of accomplishments over the past 2 quarters. There's not an action item assigned with this. We are running late, but briefly, if there's anything pertinent that needed to be brought up.
I like the pie charts. I could see those kind of things as challenges being in your strategic plan. What can you do to mitigate those things that are impacting our businesses, for example? So,
yes, sir.
I'll keep it brief. I know it's getting late. This may be something already in the works, but once the construction is done, would there be plans to work with city staff, Vanessa's department, to kind of do some media drops on the local TV stations? We're open for business.
Yes.
Is that all right?
that
I'm
is-
assuming
yes.
you're one step ahead of me. Glenn.
Yes, absolutely.
No comment. I'll catch you later.
Just a few comments. I really do appreciate the report, and I know it's a lot of work to put this together. I look at it as not only a report to the council, but it's a report to the community. It's the people that are attending our meetings or watching or going online and trying to learn more about what the EDC does. So in general, I would just like to see a little more detail. You mentioned different meetings, but I'd like to know, okay, what's the next step? What was the outcome? In particular, the challenges that you've identified with the business visits, and then also the feedback that you're getting from brokers. So what's the next step? What is the EDC doing to try and mitigate or eliminate some of these challenges? So I think that would be helpful to see. I understand what the issues are. And it's going to take, again, a big team approach to try and fix some of this, but is that happening or not?
So I can address that a little bit. So some of that's going to be addressed in our strategic plan and then also in our budget specifically.
Yeah. How would EDC address difficulty with permitting? That's 24% of business problems. How does EDC address limited signage? That's city business. How does
They don't control, but
EDC control road construction?
So.
I not
again,
control,
this-
but
I think-
communicate with the departments that are responsible for that and try to work on
we
a
can the
solution.
city to allow temporary signs to be placed out along the road, right?
Mhm.
I mean, that was one of the things EDC helped to mitigate something that they couldn't control the timeline of the construction project.
Correct.
But they reached out and asked the city, hey, could you help the business? It's that kind of stuff.
So we have done some things to mitigate that. We did that on temporary assignments, but like on business permits, a good many of them is because we told them exactly what to submit and they just never submitted. And, or they said we were holding things up when it turned out it was actually the contractor that wasn't telling them the truth. So it gets categorized sometimes as the city's fault, but in all reality, about 9 out of 10 or more are actually the actual owner or their contractor not communicating with each other. But to your point, that's not necessarily something the EDC can do,
Right.
but he's just identifying where the problem so we can be aware.
It's good.
But on that point, we can be also a liaison. So typically I don't talk to the contractor. I will talk to the business owner and I will reach out to Michael and kind of find out what the real issues are and make sure the owner knows, because you're right. Contractors are typically the point of contact and aren't
I
revealing
know
all the
it's late,
information.
but this is a great discussion. Like, this is how people understand what goes on and how this
Yeah.
works. Thank you.
All right.
I
Thank you.
have a
Oh,
quick question, and I
okay.
promise it's quick. When you put more detail in though, isn't there some level of your negotiations and job that's sensitive data that you can't include? So how does that factor in? You're
Absolutely.
asked to provide more information.
So one even kind of minor example is why we're doing the pie charts. We're not revealing who's telling us the information. Sometimes they may be fearful of retaliation, to be quite honest, right? If you have business owners that are complaining about a permitting process, if they're identified, it's a feeling, right? It's perception. It's not necessarily reality.
Far from it.
But they're able to give me information as long as it remains anonymous. But you're right, specific details on business name, we wouldn't be able to provide. That's why on one of them, we talk about industries. So we have office, retail, restaurant, medical. We can provide that information, but not the specific user. if that
Yeah, I
makes sense.
wouldn't want to, I wasn't expecting specific names or anything like that. Just, for, I look at food and beverage and obviously you can't put in the names of specific, restaurants, but is that fried chicken or is that a brewery?
Well,
That-
that I'm not gonna say either, because there are instances that could reveal
Beer
the
chicken.
source.
Okay.
Beer chicken.
But we also have the option of if council inquires going into executive session to get more detail while the negotiations are still going on. There's so that it maintains confidentiality.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn.
Thanks, Glenn.
So at this point, we're going to adjourn into closed session in accordance with Texas Government Code, section 551.071, consultations with the attorney, particularly section 551.074, personnel matters, as listed in the agenda. The time at this point is 9:19. We will be returning shortly. No decisions will be made, just executive discussion. All right. Got everybody? All right. We live?
We are live now, Mayor.
All right. Time is 9:34. We are resuming. Executive session was held. No decisions were made. 34, right? Yeah, 9:34. At this time, looking for a motion, a second to discuss and take action on item number 15 is written.
Take action on agenda number 15 as written.
Motion by Sanders, second by
Second.
Stones. Okay, this is really a motion to approve the mayor to negotiate and execute a contract for an interim city administrator, as discussed in closed session. I don't know if there's really any discussion to be had. Anybody on council here have anything to discuss openly? No? Okay.
I really don't have anything to say, Rich. So.
Okay. Well, in that case, we'll go to a vote. All in favor of approving item number 15 as written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. And with that, we come to the close of this meeting and we will adjourn. It'll be 9:35 PM.